You famously said that the Republican Party has a problem at the box office. I heard you equate the GOP with the Titanic. Explain.
The reason why I said it was because their policies were such that they were not really including everybody. And we were losing them because we were not addressing those issues. So I was telling them, I said, look, the way you're going, by being so healthcare reform and being so anti-environment and stuff like this, we are losing and we are dying at the box office.
Democracy is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Those aren't just words from a bodybuilder. They're from Arnold's viral takedown of Trump that has the entire internet talking. The former California governor compared the Capitol riot to Kristallnacht from his childhood in Austria, wielded Conan's sword as a metaphor for democracy, and suggested Trump take over TV while he takes over the presidency. Trump's reaction? Let's just say he didn't take being terminated very well. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Believe it or not, Trump and Arnold used to be buddies. Yeah, these two massive egos actually played nice together back in the day. Before their epic feud, they'd show up at the same fancy events, slap each other on the back, and pose for photos with those awkward rich guy smiles. Trump even donated to Arnold's California governor campaign, probably thinking they were cut from the same cloth. Celebrity Republicans with questionable hair choices. But the bromance went south faster than Trump's approval ratings. The breaking point, TV ratings of all things, when Arnold took over as host of the Celebrity Apprentice after Trump left to pretend to run the country. Our orange friend couldn't handle someone else sitting in his chair. Trump went absolutely bananas, tweeting obsessively about how Arnold's ratings were terrible compared to his tremendous numbers.
As an immigrant to this country, I would like to say a few words to my fellow Americans. President Trump sought to overturn the results of an election, and of a fair election. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The good thing is that he soon will be as irrelevant as an old tweet. Very aware of Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. It was a night of rampage against the Jews carried out in 1938 at the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys.
We're talking about the President of the United States waking up at 3 a.m. to bash Arnold's TV performance while actual presidential stuff was happening. Like, sir, don't you have a country to run? Nope. Tweeting about Nielsen ratings was apparently more important than national security briefing. Arnold, being the cool-headed action hero we know and love, initially responded with that classic Schwarzenegger humor. Instead of getting all worked up, he suggested they switch jobs so Americans could sleep comfortably again. Ouch. That burn was so hot, it could have melted the T-1000. As Trump's presidency spiraled into chaos, Arnold's tolerance for his former friend's nonsense evaporated. The man who once governed California as a Republican began openly criticizing Trump's policies, his character, and his complete inability to act like a normal human being. With every unhinged tweet from the White House, Arnold loaded another verbal shotgun shell. What really cranked this feud up to 11 was Arnold's evolving political stance. While Trump was busy destroying democratic norms and watching Fox News, Schwarzenegger was out there championing environmental causes, voting rights, and fair elections. Turns out the Terminator cares more about preserving American democracy than the guy who actually swore to defend it.
Arnold, I have a great idea. Why don't we switch jobs? You take over TV because you're such an expert in ratings, and I take over your job. And then people can finally sleep comfortably again.
And they hired a big movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to take my place. And we know how that turned out. The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster.
So being from Europe, I have seen firsthand how things can spin out of control. I know there is a fear in this country and all over the world that something like this could happen right here.
Then January 6th happened, and while other celebrities were posting generic sad to see this violence statements, Arnold pulled out an actual sword on camera and compared the Capitol riot to Nazi Germany, drawing from his own childhood in post-war Austria. The Terminator didn't just tweet his concerns, he grabbed his Conan sword and delivered the kind of speech that makes history books sit up and take notes. In a video that went more viral than Trump's COVID diagnosis, Arnold did something rare rare for a macho action star. He got vulnerable. He shared how his father, like many others in Austria after World War I, fell for the lies and intolerance of the Nazi Party. I've seen firsthand how things can spin out of control, Arnold explained as he held up his sword, explaining how steel gets stronger the more it's tempered, just like democracy.
The only thing is that we don't have to go under completely. We don't have to wait for that moment. Let's change and let's go and be more open and go back to this kind of like a big tent idea of Ronald Reagan. And I think this is why we have helped it to some extent here in California with the, getting rid of gerrymandering and to do redistricting reform and to have open primaries.
Independents are about to overtake Republicans in California. What can California do differently?
I think independents are going to take over the Republicans, they're going to take over the Democrats also.
But the real jaw-dropper came when Arnold compared the Capitol riot to Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, when Nazi sympathizers destroyed Jewish businesses and synagogues in 1938. The broken glass was in the windows of the United States Capitol. He said, delivering a history lesson Trump probably slept through in school, assuming he was even there. The Austrian oak didn't stop there. He called Trump a failed leader who will go down in history as the worst president ever, which is saying something considering we've had presidents who owned slaves. Talk about a Terminator-style execution. No fancy weapons, just cold, hard truth. Trump, being the master of comebacks that he is, responded by attacking Arnold's TV ratings again, seriously. While democracy was hanging by a thread, Orange Julius Caesar was still obsessed with Nielsen numbers from 2017. It's like bringing a plastic spork to a tank battle. The internet had a field day. Suddenly everyone was posting Arnold movie quotes rewritten for politics. I'll be back, to restore democracy, and hasta la vista insurrectionists were trending faster than Trump could say kafef. Even conservative outlets couldn't ignore the sight of the Republican former governor holding a sword and defending the Constitution better than the actual president. The most delicious irony? An Austrian-born bodybuilder with a thick accent became America's unexpected democracy whisperer, while the Queens-born, supposedly patriotic president was actively trying to burn the whole system down. Turns out real patriotism isn't about hugging flags at CPAC. It's about standing up for democratic principles when they're under attack. So here we are, folks, with the most bizarre plot twist in American political theater. A bodybuilder with an Austrian accent schooling a New York billionaire on patriotism. Who could have predicted that? The guy who once promised to terminate movie villains ended up trying to terminate threats to democracy instead. This whole saga proves something pretty amazing. Sometimes heroes come from the most unexpected places. While Trump was busy tweeting and complaining about TV shows, Arnold was flexing something more important than biceps: actual principles. The man famous for barely speaking in his movies somehow managed to say more meaningful things about American democracy than the guy who couldn't stop talking. Let's be honest, if someone told you back in the 80s that the Terminator would become democracy's champion while a reality TV host tried to terminate election results, you'd think they were pitching the worst movie ever. Yet here we are, living in the weirdest timeline where "I'll be back" became less of a threat and more of a promise to protect what makes America great. Not bad for a guy who can barely pronounce California, right?